Hello and welcome to the final discussion of Stormed Fortress. This is the 8th book in the Wars of Light and Shadow series by Janny Wurts. And the dragon on the cover makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, all the covers do. It's just sometimes I have no idea what some of the symbols mean. But we read these books approximately 150-ish pages every 2 weeks and talk about them. The videos go up, I don't know, Tuesday or Wednesday on our channels. If you'd like to read along with us or discuss these books with us on the forum, we are up to the 9th book now. We're going to be starting Initiate's Trial in the next 2 weeks. We're not taking the usual break because we got to go straight on. That's what we have to do at this point. We will also have a live stream with the author Janny Wurts next Sunday at 1 p.m. Pacific. That's going to be hosted on Jared's channel and on my channel. And yeah, I think those are all the intro things. Chris, would you like to start us off with introductions?
Sorry, I was going to leave the room for a second. My name's Chris. I am from the Chronicle of Chris YouTube channel and take part in many group read-alongs and page tunes, such as the podcast Speculative Speculations and the like there. And you can find me there if you need to be. Chibi.
Hello, I am Chibi Po, and I lurk around on page tuning and also on Blue Sky, no longer on Twitter, so can't find me there. I deleted it. And yeah, great to be here. Jared.
Yes, no deletions necessary here. I'm on the Fantasy Thinker YouTube channel and the aforementioned Speculative Speculation podcast and quite a few other fine podcasts on page viewing as well. And yeah, anybody who wants to find some information on all of our read-alongs, just head there. We usually have Vasha's forcing us to do a few here and there.
Yeah, I'm forcing you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's important. Like the discussion groups are open to anybody interested. So if you'd like to come chat with us, do check out the forum. This week it's the final discussion. We've been reading 4 chapters each week. So today will be 13 to 16, but I guess we can, since it's the end of the book, we'll probably go back to some events from earlier in the book or earlier.
We'll not have time, Varsha. We will not have time to discuss things earlier in the thing. Even discussing chapter 13 and 14 might be distracting from the fact that I have been peeing myself every time I sat down or otherwise to wait to talk about what happened at the end of this book. This is honestly the most excited I've been for a story book of any book probably in years. This is freaking insane.
Nice. Right off the bat, chapter 13.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, titled Storm Fortress, just like the book.
That's right. Yeah.
But some 2 of our good friends are gone. Right off the bat. Yeah. Phelan and her was she married to him or was they
her mate? I think she called them the partner mate. They may have been married, but I think very ship terms they were mates.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So they didn't make it. The first of more deaths to come. Jeez.
But not entirely unsurprising because it was sort of foreshadowed, wasn't it, beforehand when Abyssi said Arthur's magic couldn't quite get there in time, so to speak, in terms of that. But crucially, Arthur had also broken his compact with Sulfin that he wouldn't interfere in the thing to try and save her in the end, which I thought might have had more consequence at the time, but it was kind of like there was so much other stuff happened that I don't think Sulfin could put it all together quick enough. There was so much happened even to Sulfin in these last couple of chapters. But yes, very sad to see Phelan go. And
yes, yeah. I cried a lot. Needed some PG Woodhouse breaks after that.
Yeah, that was rough. I mean, we the reader, never mind Arathon, but we the reader have known her since she was a tyke, and that was pretty rough. Yeah.
Do you
And
feel like it was a satisfactory ending for her?
I think so, because she died happy with no regrets and with having done what she went out to do. And I feel like she sort of set herself, like, made up her mind
Yeah.
for this. Like, she knew that things could go very, very wrong. Um, so yes, I think this is a good way for her to go.
Hmm.
Which, I mean, I was in this whole exchange made me think of Jared too. He got to say properly goodbye to her, and I think this bit is important about the free choice, where she tells him to not take on the guilt from her death, because she
Hmm.
grew up and she made this decision to
That's right.
come here. So she says, I grew up, you will make no apologies. And same with Jared, except I think Arathon, maybe in Kivor he did, but until then he did not reconcile himself. He blamed himself, I think, for Jared's death. But from the reader's perspective, Jared's death, I was not satisfied with, because he died as a captive, and Phelan sort of went out in a pile of blazing glory, if you will. And um, yeah, but this bothered me slightly less than Jared's death, I think. But
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah.
I don't know. I would counter that, Jarrett himself, also went out in a blaze of glory.
Yeah.
that's true, yeah.
True. Yeah.
Bringing, calling a Peruvian, shade from the past.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
cool.
that happened, yes.
I will admit, as I can remember this sort of first time reading this, that I did not catch the potential death flags of for Phelan, even when she asked for the ring back from her mom. And so when I got to this, I was like, oh no.
Yeah. And not only that, but she's been reckless her whole life, and it's like you would think, okay, yeah, it's finally caught up with her. So but you've been also so used to her getting out of it somehow too. So kind of a double-edged sword there.
Yeah. Even the part that leads up to it is like, yeah, okay, let's go crash into that. It's fine. Gatrick will fix it. Sorry, Chris, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I was just going to say, pretty much like you said, they both sort of go out on their own terms, both Jarrett, Phelan, and actually a lot of the characters, as we find out even later on, for some of the characters, it was sort of foretold for them that a lot of these people would not make it, and it was sort of like a known thing going forward. But it still hits, because I think we as readers still see her as a child. And children do not die in books, but children are not killed in books, even though she is not a child at all
She's
anymore.
not,
but it is,
right.
Yeah, but we still have the sense of seeing her and knowing her as a child, and it sort of breaks that unwritten rule that happens in a lot of books that way, which is sort of why you're sort of fighting with yourself, fighting the death flags, as Chibi says, to kind of say, oh, it's sort of foretold in here that maybe she might, but she will get out of it, because that's what will happen. She's a heroine in this story, and like a lot of good people lost their lives here.
Yeah, and you have that that dissonance with Arathon not aging.
Yes, that's right.
And so you have that, that set in your mind that some of these other characters are gonna be around, but they're not gonna be, because time passes and it doesn't pass the same for them as it does for Arathon, and it's it's you got to wrap your head around that and realize that Phelan has lived a full life up until this point. I mean, it was cut short a little bit, but not like we remember her as a young person.
She has children of her own.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah.
And when Arathon says, I'll take care of your children now, it's my responsibility, like, even though you took this ring away from me. She says, when have you not been responsible for my children? And just by
true.
taking care of her and her brother and the mother so well, he's also sort of indirectly done that for the children too. So yeah, it was very sad, very very sad,
Was.
but
But
satisfying.
one of a number of deaths that were to
Man,
come,
yes.
because it just, wow, we just kind of get
Yeah.
hit over the head. But before we even get there, we have our boy, my boy,
Oh yeah, yeah.
Sultan doing his talking down of Lysair.
Yes.
Oh yeah, proclaiming his bromance with Lysair. Don't do it. that was great. That was great.
It was. Again, it was very highlighted. Look
My
at
my 2 cents on this. Very very brave apparently.
that. Very, very good. Not your super bros. But it was interesting because again it kind of follows the path beforehand that Lysair can sort of was released from the curse, at least temporarily, but now that showing that Alethea has had more long-standing effects on Lysair, because there is kind of some remnant there that he can kind of hold on to, even if it's just through Sultan.
Yeah.
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 And
Yeah.
it worked. This kind of attempt to talk him down has always been terrifying and scary, and it will never work, and ends really badly for Sulfan Evan, because afterwards Lysa's like, get out. I don't want to talk to you. But this time he acknowledged and said
Yeah.
thank you, even, I think. Did he? Anyway, I think he's happy to be around Sulfan and knows that he's being protected by him. So yeah, I feel like I'm gonna like Lysair a lot more now.
How could you like him more, Varsha?
Team
You were
Lysair.
the champion cheerleader.
Well, I've been sort of a apologizer for him.
Mhm.
Now I like him.
It's the blonde hair,
Mhm. Yeah.
flowing locks.
Yes, the flowing locks and the sunlight shining behind. Okay.
I don't want to, because I honestly don't know, but it does feel that there has been a set to kind of create a narrative for Lysair towards redemption here towards the end.
Mm.
What I expected with the last 3 books. While I don't know, it just sort of feels again the direction of travel for him, insofar as like those moments of clarity that he has to kind of show who the person is rather than what the curse portrays them as. Were very touching, as much as anything else, and we sort of remember the relationship between him and Arathon back in Curse of the Mistwraith, and how tight they were before the interference of the curse. So we get an inkling of that through the relationship between Sulfan and Lysair, obviously, but yeah.
Yeah. It's also interesting. Okay, so 2 things. I guess we'll talk about Avenor a little bit later, but Sulfan Evan, I was thinking, he has been sort of the replacement, sort of, to Talit's brother. I forget his name. In the relationship, in that he could talk back to him, and it didn't start out that way. He started very much as, worshipping him big time, and then starting to see the flaws and readjusting how he interacted with Lysair through all of that. And now what started off as a blind need to listen to everything he says and protect him because he saved his life is now, so I think, so much like well judged interactions and decisions. I love that character growth for him. It's he is one of my favorite characters. Yes.
Yeah. He certainly is. Yeah, and then we move into there was this argument with Dakar and Talvish, and there was something about that they were like, one of them was saying Arathon should be doing something, and there was a question about what was the right thing to do here. If he uses shadow, then he would violate a trust in tearing apart what the Lysaia, what the piece that he that he got from the sword. He would risk that, but how many men would he save if he did use his shadow power? and there was a big back and forth between that with Vanden there, and he said that that it was a damn raw consolation that Brancian's men-at-arms must be left to make their own way in this battle, and Arathon couldn't interfere to save them because he couldn't risk his half-brother's wrath. And it was just it was like a whole page debate between them, and I thought that was just like a really good breakdown of the difficulty of their situation, and the conflict that's going on between all these different parties.
Yeah, like when he called Shadow to try and protect Phelan, that kicked off the Mistwraith's curse, which led to Sulfin making his big stand to try to talk him down, Lysair down.
Yeah. But
yeah, if he had kept using Shadow, well, all the efforts to for Lysair was done would have just been he would just turn and started trying to burn them out, the castle and down and whatnot.
Yeah.
So he's like, yeah, we're gonna withdraw because the alternative is we missed the opportunity to try and possibly eventually get Lysair free of the curse.
Indeed.
Right.
I also think there's pretty much a key thing from this point to the end of the book that's kind of set up, and that is the fact that free will doesn't totally exist in this world, especially in the way that like Arathon is trying to lose Alethiel and trying to use his power and his magic, and same for everybody within this world. Obviously humanity has had its own run of the place, and like free will is supposedly at the center of all of that, but at certain points the Peruvian magic, the Peruvian system is holding back at the stage of saying no, we're the crucial points. So when Arathon tries to enact his flee and Alethiel won't respond, Alethiel really isn't under his command. Alethiel is kind of beholden to the compact in some way, and it obviously has its own ways and means to do it. So it's not free for Arathon to use how he wants it all of the time. And I think the readjustment of the world that happens towards the end of this book in terms of what we understand of what humanity's choices are, and actually what the bigger design of the Peruvian contacts and the compact and the strategic development and the place of the fellowship specifically in that becomes very much center of focus between now and the end of the book. And it's sort of evidenced by the fact that Arathon tries to use Alethiel as part of his flee, and Alethiel's like, not part of something I'm interested in. This is not, you don't have the choice in this. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's an interesting point. Yeah, that Alethea is she a she? She didn't wake up for for the second time. Yeah, that was interesting. I can't say I fully understood why though. Is it and it seemed to be tied to some of the citizens in the citadel still being out, or I forget what it was, but I feel like there was an explanation for why Alethiel didn't wake up and I missed it.
I mean, Chibi will probably know better, but for me, it is very much around like Arathon having his idea of what he wanted to do, but actually Alethiel has a purpose, or has the Peruvian magic has a purpose within the world, and putting other things at risk in lieu of his free choice was not going to be allowed, was not going to be used that way. Whereas last time it was used was obviously to affect Lysair and the curse and the just general that bubble around him, and so was being made to work in progress or purpose of well-being of that world, if you know what I mean. Whereas what Arathon wanted to do at that point was very much in a selfish nature. It was like what he wanted to do at that stage, and he needed Alethiel at that time to help him. And Alethiel was like, I'm personification of a weapon here, but this is I'm not interested in that. That's not part of my use. That's not part of my plan for what it's been used for. I mean, that was my reading of it, but I mean, could be way wrong with that.
Yeah, well, the sword is also it's an instrument of transcendent change, and maybe that change wasn't called for. That's what I'm kind of trying to guess. Because they were trying to they were talking about him using it again, but Alara was concerned about the power lifting him too far to hold on to his human identity because of that pure power of transcendent change that the sword entails. And so there's a lot of other factors involved with trying to use that sword again in that manner,
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, I think I found the bit that I wasn't sure about when Ilera comes to Arathon and says, "You saw no other way to spare Fionn Arith." Is it that he was trying to do all of that, what he wanted to do with Alethea, so that he could spare Fionn Arith? And Alethea's like, "Nah, dude, sorry." Then a lot more harm will come out of it, or was it something else to do with Fionn Arith? I didn't fully understand that. But I
Again,
like the. Go ahead.
yeah, I sort of like the idea that Arthur's not the master of everything that he conveys in this world. He has made all these promises to people to protect him and all that kind of stuff. And even from Phelan's point of view, wasn't able to protect Phelan and has got a promise to protect their children. But he's sort of making promises to people that he can't keep because he needs either help from others or other things or other instruments in order to enact that to happen sometimes. And he's not all powerful within this world. And I think that's a key, again, a key point to make about what's happening in the book at this time, because there are events and things that happen, and a lot of the close of the book is very much about the kind of what we think is happening in the world is about to rebalance here a little bit. The natural order is being messed with here a little bit, and people taking back control.
Yeah. I like that Fionn Arith went out the way he wanted to towards the end.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Kind of, yeah. I mean, there was a lot more with, because Dakar figured out something about him before or he mentioned something about Fionn before Fionn went out. Dakar was worried about the Prime
Coriani.
Celody putting a marked sigil on Fionn the same way that like the same way that Alara is tagged. And so and he mentioned that when he was arguing with Vanden about something.
Oh, interesting. I think I missed that.
Yeah, Dakar, but we find out that the person Dakar, the people Dakar should have been concerned about wasn't Fionn Arith.
Right. Yeah, that's right. It was Parian. Yeah. That.
Oh no, not just Parian.
Not just Parian.
Catrick and his crew.
Yeah,
that's right. That's right. Yep.
She kept that in.
Yes. She kept
hanging,
that,
secretly all this time.
Yep, that's right. Yep, she did. And yeah, where did I read that? That we found that out a bit later, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, or right when Catrick and Fionn are talking, and that she had suborned, because Fionn's blaming him for being a traitor, and he's like, no, she suborned my men, and whatnot.
That's right. Yeah.
And still are.
Fionn went. What's that?
And still are, as the case is. She's still they are being in control to this point, even still.
Yeah, because Fionn went down to the was it down to the docks?
Yes, he did. Yeah.
And he was trying to get in with them, his plan was to get in on the boat and eventually go with them, right? He was actually making plans to change his own fortunes, and he kind of got thwarted because Catrick, somebody ended up like stuffing him in the boat or whatever, and
But
not
knocked him out
letting
one
him
of his
go
men.
along.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I found it interesting that Fionn had that moment of growth, that he was like, I'm going to just go ahead and take charge of my own destiny and, move on out of here with my life. And then, of course, everything went down, and that sort of thwarted all that. But
Yeah. But almost to the very end, Fionn is still on this thing of not really believing, despite all the evidence of the past. Everybody goes to his question, but why Arthur as opposed to Lysair, who seems like a cool dude? It's like until the very end, and it's only at the very end. It's not even that he really chooses one side; he just decides the right thing to do at this point is to hold the gate,
right,
and let people escape. And he decides his own hero's journey at that stage, and says, "Right, this is where I'm at."
Yep.
And he also says that he saw the look on Arathon's face when Phelan died, and that
That's right.
seems to have, I don't know, because he's seen other things like that. There was one bit at the Paravian stone or something in a previous book where also he seemed to have had a moment of realization. But he tells Catrick, I saw the look on his face when Phelan died, and I guess implying that that convinced him somehow. But yeah, you're right. It's unclear whether that was all, and he's now decided that he is on the right side, or if he's just like, yeah, this is where I am, and this is what I need to fight, and this is who I need to protect. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, like when we speak to Janny next week, one of my questions that I have for her is actually about Fiona Art's arc, and sort of what she was hoping to achieve through his thing, because it was sort of toyed with the idea that he would have a longer arc that was extended the next thing. He's certainly young enough to make it into the next arc, etc. But it's not like his arc resolves in a way that I think is what we, the reader, were looking for most of the time from, because we were ultimately very frustrated with him and there's an inability to see. And at the end, it's sort of left a bit open and not closed off. So, like, what were the intentions behind his arc? Not to say that I disliked it or anything. I actually found it very satisfying, actually, in a lot of ways. But was it always intended that he would kind of get to that end and get to that place and that where it was? Or was it a case of, right, how do we close off this arc? When he's been saved, it kind of felt a bit rubbish to kind of, right, you're done, go stand over there looking like Arathon. They didn't change his appearance back. They didn't remove anything out. It was just very much his resolution was essentially to be wheeled in front of Lysair and Sulfan and basically said, this is the spinner of darkness. Oh no, it's not. That's not him, etc. And then kind of go from there,
Yeah, I was trying to pull up his birth prophecy to sort of trace his arc.
Yes. I was thinking where to look at that.
Right.
So how did he die? That was very much in my head as well.
That was at the beginning of Grand Conspiracy, right? Was it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Fugitive Prince.
Wait.
Oh,
No, sorry,
Fugitive
Fugitive
Prince,
Prince.
yeah,
Grand
right.
Conspiracy is where his face gets changed, and Fugitive Prince is where he's born.
Well, thankfully, there is a wiki on Pravia.com.
Oh, nice.
1 child, 4 possible fates. Look for the thread of his lifespan. Should he die on salt water, the one you love falls beside him. Should he die landbound and cross steel and smoke, the same one you cherish survives but betrayed. Should the child's days extend the old age, first of 5 kingdoms in the whole world will plunge into darkness, never see sunlight or redemption. And should he die on fire, none suffers but he. Yeah.
So we've seen all 3 of those.
Yeah.
Have we? Wait, please explain.
Fire was end of Grand Conspiracy.
So he could have died at that stage.
Okay.
And then Trader's Knot was saltwater.
Yep.
During the Ayat storm on Phelan's boat.
Uh-huh.
And then we get cross steel and landbound, cross steel and smoke.
The betrayal was
carrying, probably. Or maybe
Okay.
there's another betrayal.
The one you love.
Love survives, but betrayed.
Betrayed.
Well, I don't know who.
We'll see. We'll see. You're a very good poker player up to this point, Chibi, so I'm not going to push you anymore on that.
Yeah.
The reason for your camera being off has become very clear to me by the end of this book.
Yeah.
Wait, but betrayed, that would be the part where he got stabbed by Padian, right? Because
Well, I thought so, but I never leave it up to Janny to just kind of leave it
Yeah.
nicely. Just
Yeah.
that.
I mean, that section was called First Betrayal, where he got stabbed.
There you go.
What's
First
that?
betrayal makes you think more
Mm.
coming.
There's more coming. Yeah, right.
Was there a second betrayal in this section, or
I don't have that written down. No.
I don't believe so. Like I can't think of another form of betrayal because even then, Parian was not really of his own sound mind, if that makes sense. When that whole thing,
Yeah, but it was
happens,
still
so.
yeah. No, I don't have a second betrayal written down.
is it perhaps the whole thing with Dakar? We'll talk about it when we get there, I suppose. But it's kind of unclear to me why he feels like he betrayed Arathon's trust, and he needs to leave now. But do you think that's the second betrayal?
Well, I have a feeling there's still more betrayals to come. There's 3 books to go.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm feeling there's a good chance that whether this is the betrayal we're talking about or otherwise there will be other consequences to the relationships that he's made.
But this is the one. The Parian one is the one that most has a direct. Well, so far as we know, has a direct line back to Fiona Red.
Yeah.
I'm curious to know how the world would have plunged into darkness if he had survived to old age.
Mystery.
Well.
Mm.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. How would that have? Yeah. Good question. We're not going to find out because he's dead. But
Yes.
you can write the offshoot series.
Okay.
Alternate timeline.
Yeah.
Alternate timeline.
Fanfic. Darkness of Aerith, you know.
World plunges into darkness. Wow.
Oh, okay. So Chibi, yeah, that's it was the news item number 2 in this chapter 13 that pointed out the latent imprint in crystal held over the shipwright since Riverton.
Yes.
Because I underlined that and I was like, oh, why is? I was like, I put a question mark. I was just like, and now it's starting to make sense that was the. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense now. All right.
That was again, the Coriani plot. We've known there's a plot, but without really knowing what the details were. Do you know what I mean? We didn't really have a sense of actually what the end game was there. And as we find out in another case of Saletti, none of her plans actually come out. She's pretty crap at this. Like I have to say, she's not very good at this whole plot stuff. She had to go to Lorenda many times for basically saying she was useless and all that kind of stuff, but she's no better herself.
What I am starting to be impressed by is just how many backup and contingency plans she has or makes on the go to sort of readjust and still try to, like, she's got this line of sight to where she wants to go, and she's gonna keep trying until she gets there. Oh my god. And we found out that her plan, and maybe this was clear in Trader's Knot, I don't know, but she wants the child so she can train to be prime successor. But what is special about Arathon's child that maybe because nobody else has had enough magic or the ability to withstand the training, perhaps? But then she keeps picking shit people. Like Lyranda, she's so full of hubris. How is she ever going to succeed? But she's. I feel like she's too selfish to think about the greater good that Celody seems to need.
But I think a lot of that's tied to the very makeup of how they basically enslave these young women into the Coriani. They basically tie their life to service in some ways. So you're never really going to get devotion in the same way that, say, Arathon is going to get by inspiring people or otherwise. They're always going to be, you're always creating a system where there's dark. It's almost like the dark side in Star Wars in some ways. People have to go to the dark side to help in some ways. And so she's really not going to get the level of competency or as a desire that other people will be willing to go for. Because even Allura sort of floats between this service and what she can do and the limits of her power, etc. on that. But
Yeah, but imagine if
that's interesting.
Yeah, imagine if you could train up somebody of Arathon's lineage
Yes,
with that,
absolutely.
and control them from birth with that kind of lineage, and with all the potential that Alara showed as well, and have that under your complete control. That seems like a power match made in heaven for
Yeah.
the megalomaniacal Moriel.
Yeah.
That's true, but also that lineage is tortured by the compassion gene, and the things that Moriel does, it kind of needs the shutting down of compassion. And
Well, she
yeah,
wants to control that
He wants to
compassion.
control it. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
suppose, yeah.
Um,
Yeah, just
and
like Lysa's justice has been controlled by the Mistrate, you can make it seem like an act of compassion, I suppose. Sorry,
and,
Chris,
and,
go ahead.
and it also seems like the prophecy that Arthur will be the end of the Coriani, and so that
Mm,
prophecy itself, by the enacting of trying to get a successor or a child of Arthur within the Coriani, kind of nearly fixes that. If you know what I mean, it sort of says that didn't come true. But we also get through the end of this book, we also get the talk of actually how Arthur is a successor to Torbrand, and actually the
mm,
power that Torbrand was able to wield as a former Prince of Rathian at that stage, and actually how incredibly powerful and well set he was. And so the idea that his own lineage would be as equally powerful, because again, we see Arathon a lot as being incredibly powerful, but he only uses it very sparingly, partly because he wasn't able to, because of the curse and the hold of that beforehand and the restriction of his mage type. But also, we only get he seems to do it in very playful measures sometimes, making sure he can sneak about and that kind of stuff without maybe the grandiose nature that Lysair has been doing, obviously, with the firebolts from the sky or the light shining down from the sky, the very grandiose. And obviously, through Alethiel and through his magic, we see his most expansive parts of his magic happening, incredibly powerful. But actually, him and himself, maybe not so much.
yeah, yep. That makes sense. This and we also find out that, oh, I have a question, but I might forget by the time we get to it. I'll
Yes.
ask it and then we can decide whether to discuss now. So the section at the end of this book that had information on how the lineages are, the kingly
Oh, yes.
lineages work, and how the Catane succession works, and so on. And I think Janny told us this in one of the earlier discussions we had with her too, that when there are multiple people, it sort of flows in a different way. Oh, okay. I think I understand. Never mind. But I'll finish asking my question and tell you what I understood. so, so, I thought that it sort of divided amongst the people of that lineage the genetic gift that they hand off, like compassion and justice and whatnot. Um, so I thought Arathon might find out that he has a daughter if he feels less compassionate than he did before. But then she described it like a river flowing. So in Arathon, it stays the same, but down below it might separate. So yeah, I guess that makes sense. That's what I understood when I said, oh.
Well, I think this sort of came up before with Lysair to Kevor as well, when we were,
Mm,
Kevor didn't inherit Lysair's necessary gifts in the same way because it didn't flow into him in the same ways that it might have flown into another.
mm, interesting. Okay.
Oh yeah,
Okay. Yeah. Do you think we'll see them again?
yeah. I forgot about
Yeah.
Kevor. Yeah,
Yeah. We've
I
been.
was saying, I was thinking about Kevor. I hope to see Kevor again because it felt like he had a destiny as well.
Yeah.
Through being an adept at this stage, and like it's too good a thing not to have come back that he gets revealed as not being dead to Lysair. Like that shit's cool. I would
Yeah.
miss that.
And another Lysair seems to be on a path to his redemption. Do you
Yeah.
think maybe his son will help him get there?
The one I hope we'll see again is Elaine. Elaine
Yes.
is the person that I wondered, God, how does she come back into this? Because it doesn't seem quite as obvious about how she's mixed up in the future of this, especially with, well, the one thing is she wasn't at Avenor when it was torched.
Right.
So, she's been able to survive by the maneuvering of her out of that place.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
I was happy she was in there, and it wasn't deserted, right? The dragon did raise the
Oh,
city
yeah,
to
yeah,
the
yeah.
ground. Yes. Okay. And do we know what happened to the hatchlings?
Their half-formed spirits were, basically sung the requiem for them, so they were able to pass.
Oh, right,
I
okay.
see. Who did? Who did the
Uh,
requiem?
what she did, Sesh Korziel.
Okay. Okay, interesting. So what she did for the other dragons, she did for them too. Yeah, I think I missed that bit when it happened, but that's good. I'm glad they got some peace. uh,
Yeah. And
cool.
so obviously Fionn and Catrick and Vanden, isn't it? They are all
Vanden
Vanden.
and Fionn died defending.
Yes.
Yeah, to let Talvich kind of run away and
Yeah.
close the gate. So they're not 3 deaths.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that was exciting. It was an exciting stand, and it was an exciting, running battle there, and that whole I was glued to that. Like I was like, oh, geez, oh,
Yeah.
I could totally picture it in my head, like a total cinematic movie moment, where they're defending the way like that and letting what's his name get away there. Talvish, yeah,
Yeah. But
outstanding.
that was also cool because we only saw the beginning of that, or not even the beginning, the decision to do that, and the middle when Vanden and Talvish show up there. They see Catrick beating people up with an oar and Fiona defending for all he's worth, and that's it. And then later we find out that they've both died, which I feel like any other fantasy book we'd have like had an entire chapter on their defense of the
Yeah.
city, but this was
Oh
done
yeah,
in
there
2
would have been a
pages and
big
was so effective. Yeah.
Yeah, there would have been a big soliloquy like, "Ah, you got me," and but no, it was. I thought it was great how they how she put it, and I just thought it was really cool how it was all told to us.
Yeah. Yeah. It was very effective, and I was grateful to not have to read a drawn out duel because I do not enjoy action scenes very much. I had a question. Sorry to go back all the way to the beginning of this discussion, but Salfin Event, how much he worries about, maybe Lyser's light will destroy him. But didn't Asandir give him some protection against that? Did he forget about it, or is it gone now that the flint knife is no longer with him?
Oh,
That's interesting.
because I mean, it was it complete protection or was just some protection? Because he was worried about being blasted into a fiery death.
Yeah.
At one point there, and because he was so close to him, and I don't think anybody else was able to approach as close as he got, without it being extremely hot or what have you. Like they were all yelling at him, like, "Don't go, no, don't approach him," So I think he was at least able to get closer. But I'm not
Oh,
sure how
okay.
much of that protection would have lasted at a lengthy exposure that,
Yeah. I did also feel that Sulfin was worried, not so much for himself, but the consequences if he antagonized Lysa a little bit, that actually would just destroy everything and everyone around him, not just like Sulfin, but like everybody that was there. There were very dire consequences for that going wrong, for sure.
Makes sense.
Outside
And I guess I remember, I guess there are two other things. One in that bathtub scene, I guess, which followed from after Salfinevin got his Cathdane ship from Asandir. Um, I think he had protection from Lysair, but he was still pretty beat up from what I remember. Um, and secondly, maybe that protection is for when Lysair directs his fury directly at Sulfinevin, and this was just
Possibly.
a generalized heat in his area. So maybe that, or he might have. I doubt that he would have forgotten about it, but maybe he doesn't take that seriously. I don't know. Anyway, I was just curious about that. But why he's so sure that he'll get hurt.
I've no good answer for that one. Sorry.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was interesting how Arathon brought up the whole broken leg incident again
Yes.
Yeah.
when he was arguing with Parian,
Arian. Yeah.
and it's like the consequences of that. He broke my leg, overrode my appeal that Lysaea's royal shipwork should be left to bide without your killing spree of reprisal. So is he saying there that breaking his leg was a mistake?
Mm.
That things wouldn't be as dire now if they didn't do that to him?
Mm. I didn't really think
Interesting.
of it like that. Yeah.
I'm trying to think of all that followed from that. I mean, he learned to heal, I suppose, but I'm guessing he would have figured out another way to do that if it wasn't trying
Yeah,
to fix
well,
his
because
own leg.
it was right soon after that Parian
Yeah.
betrayed him and ended up attacking him, trying to assassinate him, and wounded him pretty grievously.
Yeah. That is a good question.
hmm So
For a
why
reread.
did go ahead?
For a reread.
Yeah, for a reread. Yeah, I think this is going to be like my last, and I'll give myself a year or so and then reread again.
Mm.
But um, why did Parian attack Arathon? Were they in that area where he could have been under the influence of Moriel's thing?
That's part of what I thought about it as well. Like he obviously used his emotions at that time, which was that he was worried is probably the wrong word, but he was kind of furious that Arathon wasn't taking more direct intervention and to help solve the problem, and kind of lashed out. But I do believe that it was partly under the Corianian influence still at that stage.
Hmm. And what uh, he knew when he came here that Vanden had died, so that wasn't news to him. What seemed
Yeah.
to have triggered him is finding out that Fionn Arrett died and that Vanden was in the neighborhood when that happened. Or maybe it was that he went looking for Fionn Arrett and died in that
Yeah.
process. I mean, that's my best explanation for why he got violent. Uh, that he found out that Vanden's death was because of looking for Fionn Arrett, which is what Arathon did. Arathon charge them to do that, or did they just go looking for him because they knew that Arathon would be upset if they find out something's happened to him?
I think Arathon sent them after him. I'm pretty sure, because when they came back, he was like, "Well, where is he?" And they couldn't answer the question because obviously they knew he was dead at
Mm.
that stage. I think.
Parian screams something about uh, should I wait and abandon the lives of my own threatened family when he was trying to finish him off. And so I'm wondering, so he had some kind of mixed up emotions in there that Arathon's not doing the right thing to
Yeah.
protect his family, and that maybe Arathon betrayed Bridian, uh, in so that he was right in turn to betray him. Maybe by killing Arathon, he could talk to Lysaea. I'm not sure.
Is
Yeah.
it what Dakar said that drove him mad? When Dakar said, "I answer a higher authority than yours. Your Grace, clear this room. We have run out of time. Only one life inside this doomed rock pile is not considered replaceable." And
Oh, that's pretty cold, Deca.
yeah, So is that what upset him? That and then
Maybe that's because if he takes out that one life, then there's a whole bunch of readjusting to do about why they're all there and how this whole siege is going.
Yeah. Although discussed this the other night, Bruce, the Ciberian brothers have always been shown to be incredibly impetuous and incredibly,
Yes.
quick to act and kind of act first, think later in a lot of ways. So actually, a confluence of events could have just happened upon Parian, and he just kind of exploded at that point because
Yeah. No, that definitely played into it. He is
yeah.
a hot-headed fool, no doubt.
yeah.
And then Kiriel dies. Ugh.
Oh man. Okay. That was another one that he died protecting Arathon, but it felt like with all the prophecy about how he's going to die if he goes along with Arathon, it made sense. It makes sense that he died, but how he died is interesting, I guess, at the end of all of that. How do I say this? Like, there's a lot of prophecies that seem to not fizzle out, but it it feels like they're just sort of commas in the story, which again makes sense because the story isn't about them. But yeah, I'm trying to figure out how how to feel about the way Kirill died.
So again, this kind of brings me round to this idea that the prophecies, etc., all tied together. Kirill dying at that point didn't entirely save Arathon by itself, but it saved him from a bad enough injury that it didn't die on the spot. Because this is actually Kirill's death that triggers then the scene with Glendine and Illyra and the pregnancy, etc. On that, like all of those things are directly tied to Kirill dying in the way that he did. And while it sort of feels kind of a bit quick, maybe predictable because of the prophecies that everybody knew he was going to die at that stage, it sort of sets off a chain of events that follow it that are much more important than just his singular death.
Yeah.
I just liked the guy. I thought he was cool, but
yeah, he was a cool guy. stand up guy.
Stand-up guy, yeah. And yeah, but you're right. It did definitely open up the possibilities for all the rest that happened after that. It kind of fell in line. Yeah. And then there was something mentioned on right after that. Dakar, he mentioned something about the binding of Davian's 5 centuries fountain had the potential to stay the fatal course of the sword thrust on Arathon. So you kind of get this sense that if that sword thrust would have hit anybody else, they would already be dead, and that this Arathon's exposure to this life extending magic or what have you is what's keeping him on the cusp of staying alive. That was an interesting little thing that was pointed out by Dakar.
Yeah.
And very much the events from here, I would say, to the very end of the book, are all about the world that we don't understand, if that makes sense, about what we've been told about this work at this stage. So an awful lot of the Praevian magic, a lot of the rituals, etc., that they enact here are kind of ancient lore, if you know what I mean, things that have been lost to humanity and but certain people know enough to kind of say, look, if we do this, we can use the act and right of bonding with the land and Rathian, as a way to save his life while also creating the life, etc. And all of these things start to spiral out of this, almost like redressing the whole way that this world works in some ways, and ultimately to the Fellowship basically coming in like the A team at the end,
Yes, I was happy for Fellowship to save the day.
Yeah.
With the flag and everything.
Put the flag up, it was like ding, 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 ding. Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah.
It
was interesting that
music.
It was interesting all the subterfuge that they were employing to get Arathon out of there. when he was injured. All the deceit and stuff they were using, and Sulfin kind of figures it out. Your man, he kind of figures out what's going on.
He just doesn't figure it out. It's Kathleen that lets him see through the illusion of Davian's cloak, doesn't it?
Exactly.
It's very, very much, he sees it for what it is.
Yep.
And that whole scene I think is really important, because obviously they escape from Sulfin at that time, but there is the kind of groundwork laid that Sulfin was going to get there by himself. Do you know what I mean? He sort of was thinking about, right, what is best to let them go and escape from this or not. And then obviously Dakar, isn't it? Dakar hits him around the back of the head and the nip.
Who's
Sulfin? Yeah, basically knocks him out for them to escape, or was it around that stage? They
basically I thought it was something about
probably no.
Oh, so how did Arathon end up in the state? Yeah.
Spoke to Alara.
Yeah.
Yes.
About that.
That's right.
Because Dakar, I thought, hit Parian in the back of the head.
That's right. It was Dakar hit Parian in the back of the head. Yeah, that's right. That's before. Yes, indeed.
But I think that Sulfin just, came to a realization, I believe.
Well, I thought they all passed.
Oh, no, wait. No.
Out, yeah.
No, Parian crashed into him. And while the two Talvish uncalled to regret. Oh, he drew a lithial. Talvish drew a lithial.
Oh, yes.
And there was a bunch of bright sound and dazzling light. And something happened after that.
Another example of the lithial having its own kind of idea of what it's going to be used for. Like, again, not free will at this stage. This is very much about, this is what's supposed to happen at this stage.
Yeah.
Sorry, Bart.
No. I was saying, and then Sethvir tells them there's a boat coming that you can go on.
Right. And yes, so the sword's influence kind of stopped everybody.
That's right.
And Sethvir protected Alara and friends from that influence and allowed them to get out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's how Arathon got lost among the stars, because of it was very potent, apparently, the Alethio's song. But before we move on to talking about the stuff that happens later, I had a question about Sulfin, Evand, and Fionn Arith. He gets mad when Lysair shows him Fionn Arith dead. And wait, let me find that. And he says that he remembers the time when Arathon told him, "Nothing I know could force me to this. No concept of honor will be made the cause to destroy another clan and enclave of women and children." So why does he think Arathon had something to do with Fionn Arith? Like, I mean, what does he think Arathon had to do with Fionn Arith?
I didn't get that.
And Sulfin bristled to primal rage, and I think actually that later I realized that he's not really mad about Fionn Arith, but something that he thinks Arathon did that is at odds with what he claimed before, but I couldn't fully understand.
Well, Arathon promised him that he wouldn't get involved with the siege.
That's right, yeah.
But then Arathon had to show up because of
Phelan?
Not Phelan. The
Jensa.
Jensa.
Oh, Jensa. Yeah, that's originally, yes.
Yeah, he had to show up because of her. So he had conflicting oaths when it came to, like, I promise not to get involved, but I have to protect her as well. And so I think Sulfin was mad about that Arathon was there, because he felt Arathon broke his oath not to get involved. That's what I thought he was mad about.
So I thought that he meant that he saw that Arathon had sort of fought and died, and he had all these cuts, which meant he clearly participated in the battle, but then he realized he's not
Oh, in the
actually
battle.
Fionn. Sorry, he's not actually Arathon, and then he started to cool down. I think that's what happened, but I'm not
Wow.
entirely sure.
I didn't get that. There was the intimation that Lyser was going to pass Fiona Arth off as like a trophy, and to say that
Right.
everything's
We won.
grand. We
Yeah.
killed.
Yeah.
We won.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly right. And
Yeah.
Sultan was like, no, can't be doing that. That isn't what happened here. This is,
Mm.
that is not how these events played out in any way. To represent them in that way would be wrong.
But they did end up doing that, right? Because that's what they did, and then uh, people became happy that you no longer need the light because the shadow is dead, so he can return to Avenor and be
Well,
happy.
well, interestingly, what actually happens in the end is the Fellowship decide that the Lands of Light will no longer be allowed to
Yeah.
stand together. It's going to be disbanded because the Fellowship said so. Regardless of anything that happened to man, it was very much this shit's done.
Yeah. we're done with this. We're done letting the kids play and have their way.
Exactly
You've
right.
hurt
Yeah.
each other
So,
too much. Now leave. We're gonna
so
separate.
regardless of what Selfin and Lyser are sort of planning in their little corner of the world, like I say, the kind of way the world work was very much redrawn and rebalanced in terms of say you aren't in control here. This is not what's going to happen for the next little bit.
Yeah.
Including one of my favorite bits was when, like, and if the Coriani ever step out of control, we'll just squash them like a bug. I
Yes.
mean,
Oh yes.
it was very, very much in that idea. Like I remember back to our very first conversation with Janny and saying, like, how powerful are the Fellowship, and we sort of get an idea of that towards the very end of like they've been busy looking after Grimoires and doing
Yeah,
all
right.
the other things, but now that that's sort of set up and done with, they can get back to really asserting what way this world should work and the rules by which
Yeah.
it's governed by.
Well,
Yeah.
I love the fact that it was because of this dragon
Yeah,
helping out with the Grim Wars, basically, that the Fellowship was actually able to do what they did at the end. Because they've been pretty tied up. They've been pretty
massively so. Yeah,
occupied and not really able to participate in some of these events. And man, that whole dragon thing, whew, that was
Yeah.
just so
After
awesome.
after watching Sethway suffer for what 4 books,
Mm.
Yeah, right.
to hear that he's just like chilling and sewing, I love that.
I know we're leaping about here, but we need to talk about the flashback. The flashback was
Yes.
epic, so good. Going back to the arguments between Caramon, Davian, all the rest, and getting some more interest and some more perspective about actually the interworkings of the Fellowship and how they get on with each other, and how that follows through even to the end of the book was just so good. Like Davian then being discorporate and all of that, and then that leads on then to the dragon and him fixing the Grimoires and then all of that kind of stuff. That whole section was, for anybody that's read just about 8 books, to kind of get that kind of dropped in for a couple of pages was just like, it was like gold dust. I felt reading it. It was just so interesting. It was like a window in the world you shouldn't not have been able to see.
Yeah. Yeah. And
like
and it was great too for a somewhat unrelated reason. Like the perspective that we've been getting, I don't know if this was the case with all of you, but Davian as the betrayer, and that he was stripped of his corporate body because of something he did in the past. And the sense I got of that was that he was sat down to judgment, found guilty of whatever it was that they were accusing him of, and then as punishment, they did this thing where they stripped him off, right? But one, they didn't all agree that he was the
Right.
betrayer. It was just Cardamon being extremely angry at some point, which I think we knew about from an earlier book. But even the stripping him of his body bit, that was an accident that Asandir apparently severely regrets. So, like, he went the perspective shift that gives us, and also how things are spoken about and how they are framed, what they can make you think about what happened versus what actually happened. I think that disparity between the two, I think, is kind of amazing how
Yeah.
the whole thing has been reframed. So.
Yeah. Very much so, and especially about the relationship between like Asandir and Davian. Then, as happens later on, but this idea that Davian basically had his own ideas about how things should work with
Yeah.
relationship with humans and the kingdoms, etc., that were there and brought down in Caravan, is basically on the outside, kind of looking in at the end of this book in a lot of ways as being the person who isn't all right with Davian, because even Sethvir and Asandir have sort of got a piece with Davian being a very important part of the Fellowship at that stage, rather than being just on the outside all the time,
Yeah.
and sort of being brought back into the fold. I thought it was so fascinating, so interesting to read. I read that section twice. I was like, this is majorly cool.
Yep. And you also see the bits that sort of tell you about his kinship with Arathon a little bit. I think he has this very Arathon-like behavior that, oh, you're not interested. You just want to make stuff up and accuse me of it. I'm gonna go now. You don't need me for for this. And like he gets mad because he's so misunderstood, and Arathon's like that a lot. So yeah, I think I like Davian a lot more.
Yeah.
And what he says about we were just supposed to be guiding the compact, and now we're just like fixing one leak after the other. Are you happy with this? Are you not seeing an increase in burden? I really related to that because when we build a new system, I'm a software engineer. So like when we build a new system, I'm like, it's fine. We'll just fix some issues as they come. And then eventually there are so many leaks that we have to constantly struggle and fix. It's like, okay, it's time to rethink this whole thing and do something else. So I really related to that aspect of it.
But we definitely get a sense that Davian is sort of right, even though he was called Davian the Betrayer, and for many books we didn't know him. We was seen as a rebellious figure, someone who didn't fit. Sethvir and all those guys were the good guys, and Davian was maybe floating a bit in the edge. He is sort of right, because the system that they kind of created with humanity meant that anybody could interfere with it. The Coriani have been able to mess and create work for them in ways, mainly because of how the Fellowship were dealing with the world and the events that happened in the world, and even going back to the idea, they even referenced the fact that they got rid of Celessid and Sarthan's surname, Svalin, and sent Dustin Eller at the time. They were like, maybe we'd sent the wrong people out, and we have made mistakes here. There was like an ownership of the events that happened in the past before that kind of led to an unstable world in Aether at the moment, and that maybe they did the wrong thing, and maybe they didn't do the right thing, and there was kind of like a vulnerableness a bit that came out of that I thought was really, really fascinating.
Yeah. It's like they started out doing what they thought was very simple, but now it's becoming a bigger and bigger burden on them, which we saw in these last books, which again, maybe it's not always this bad, but it has been since the Mistwraith came and since Moriel decided to sort of, I don't know, break the world apart for fun. They've been occupied, right?
Yeah.
And
now,
and I love. Go ahead.
Was it the when the dragon was helping out in the Grimward? Was Asander, was he kind of trapped there? Like, did he help set him free from that?
That was sort of my experience, because again, they kept talking about the start with the dragon that there was a Fellowship sorcerer trapped within that whole system, right at the very start when they first found it, when Davian went down and to get the dragon. There was a Fellowship sorcerer caught up in that whole world, and eventually he became free as part of that whole healing process and
right
corporeal, etc. Yeah.
Okay. And so that makes sense, because as Asander was now free to do stuff in the world like he's supposed
to. Hoist the flag.
And hoist a flag.
I love when he tells someone, yeah, I don't have any more Grimwarts to fix. I'm going to start poking my finger in these problems.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah.
So, yeah, I got the sense that Asandir maybe could have done more to help himself if he didn't have the Stallion's shade to protect. And my question about why that was necessary, that I think I brought up before, became clear when tell me the dragon's name again. The dragon, the nice dragon.
The dragon.
Escrocio.
Escrocio. that dragon. when, when they uh, when they released the people who were trapped in the Grimward from Salfin Evans' party, and just how tortured they are. So it's like, yeah, of course, Asandir is not going to leave his loyal horse behind. He's going to take care of him. And yeah, I love that whole cleansing of the Grimward scene. It was quite brilliant, especially with the part about. And I was wondering that this wasn't the Grimward where they were stuck, and then apparently they travel across Grimward, so horrors from one can go into another. So 3 Grimwards have been released from the world, which is nice.
The dreaming / thing of the dragons is sort of a shared thing.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So there's some interconnection there.
Mm.
That may be important later.
You
Maybe
don't say. Or not. But I do wonder if there are any other living dragons on Athera, and if these are the ones that called the Fellowship Sorcerers here. And
so here was a question I had, and I may have just totally misinterpreted this whole thing. So in the act of fixing all that, Davian became corporeal again.
so he can't go into a discorporate form anymore, is that?
He has regained his corporeality via the dragon's dreaming.
Yeah.
But okay. But he was able to take on a corporate or corporeal form before, right? He left footprints in the snow and everything. So what has changed now? Is he that he can no longer transition to his spirit form?
Effectively, his it was his thing with Sesh Crucio allowed him to kind of straddle the line,
right?
But he didn't have a fixed physical form, and as a byproduct of what Asandir did and everything at the end there, he's regained a fixed physical form.
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah, so he can't travel as freely as he had been beforehand, whether through or otherwise. He's kind of like through the eagle. He's got the same limitations as me, Varsha, Jared, and yourself. Just get a taxi.
Yeah.
Or he's more or less to the same limitations as an Asandir.
Yeah.
He
there are shortcuts
have the same limitations.
Yeah, he can. Yeah, he could probably still travel the lanes and what have you.
Yeah.
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 All right, so.
And I love the scene with Asandir and his new horse. Is how he calls him a show off.
Yeah, I was gonna say he wasn't exactly complimentary to it. He was just
he was being affectionate.
Go stand in the corner, you cheeky. Yeah.
Oh, wait. Okay.
So now is Glendian going to
Yes.
be staying at the tower?
Yes.
It seems like, well, that was her choice. That was what Seth Fear had
Yes.
the conversation about her. This is your choice. This is not a de
Yeah.
facto kind of done thing. This is your choice about what you want to happen.
Right.
Which
And
was a lovely thing.
Arathon is not going to be told about
Oh,
his,
yeah.
daughter to be. Oracle of the daughter will spare the father. Yeah.
Yeah.
Why though?
I'm wondering about that myself. Why is he not allowed to know? And and his bringing back from the edge of death, with with the healing magic and all that stuff that the Elara went through with Glendian, and it kind of Elara was calling upon magic, a kind of magic of possession, in order to pull that off. And I'm wondering, did she kind of learn that? What was it from the Aths adepts that she kind of learned that type of magic, or was it in Coriani lore because Moriel did a did possession to get her new body?
Interesting.
So where was this knowledge of that kind of magic coming from? That's kind of the question I have.
That sounds like a good question for Janny. Well, unless Tibby knows.
He's not saying anything.
Yeah.
But he
all
is
right.
going.
Hold on.
That was a question I had. Like she,
How she knew
she
about it,
showed
yeah.
a lot of knowledge there, and I'm like, okay,
Well,
where did that come from?
She subverted the trap that was
Right.
laid
Yeah. No. Absolutely.
in
Yeah.
that stage. So, without really knowing about the trap per se, she kind of got round it, if that makes sense, in terms
Yeah.
of like.
And the
we-
difference, of course, being that Glendian's a willing participant in
Yes,
the
that's right.
possession, rather instead of Moriel's poor victim there.
Yeah.
But I'm still curious, like I mean, I know Alara's been around a while, but I'm wondering if there was a hint somewhere that she knew that kind of magic.
I think this is my reading of it, that she learned that from at adepts, because she's been very careful to not use Koreani magic at any point, because if she does, she would indebt the
Mhm.
Arathon to the Koreani. But she did do some sort of indebting thing with Dakar, and I think she did the crown of Ratain or something, so that the fellowship can intervene and say, sorry, I'm not having that. But I don't know what part of the ritual made that necessary.
The important part during that is, she enacted a Coriani ritual, but as it mentions right here in concatenation, there's the one bit, sound melded with light, brought to bear through the cipher Alara had used, unwitting, that harked back to the Bidar tribe's origins.
Right. And and that was interesting because the followers in San Shapir were sensed the magic that she was doing, and the the worshippers of Mother Dark in the desert down there, they sensed what the magic that Alara was doing. That was, yeah, you're right, that they so did Alara learn that from them? When was she with them? I don't remember.
It's not that she was with them. The Coriani lore, as we know, they go through and they catalog.
Oh, right, yeah, that's true.
All kinds of things, and as we saw at the beginning, way back at the beginning of Storm Fortress, when Sulfan Evan and Erethan were talking, Erethan talked about the Bidar having a grudge against the Coriani. Oh, and as to why.
Well, who doesn't?
Yeah, and the basic, I won't go into too much of it because it'll come up later, but basically the ritual, the things Alara did was originally a Bidar, rite, and the ways Alara changed it, shifted it back to what it was supposed to be.
Well,
Right.
yeah. Well, Saladin
Closer to what it was supposed to be, I should say.
Yeah, Saladin says something very interesting. She gives away a little bit of history, where she says, "Be damned to the defection of the Anithan Tuer, however you say that, and worse ill to plague the lost sorcerer Salatus, whose prior meddling in the distant past had denied Coriathane their earlier bid to claim the issue of Meglin's Dienaville in the first place." Is that the defection of Anethan Tour? Are we gonna? I don't recall that name before. Are we gonna hear about more about her?
She's the enchantress, crone in Erdane, who died
Oh,
at the beginning of Trader's Knot when she helped
right.
Evan and gave him the knife.
Oh yes, yes,
Learn
yes,
more
yes.
about what that's talking about later, though.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, they're sort of talked about because again, they just seem to be like another party. But the way us, because Ascendir talks about them basically saying, "Oh, they decided to get involved here," and that's a big deal. You know what I mean? Because the Fellowship aren't, influencing them. They have their own designs and their own ideas, and it makes you wonder why they got involved and why specifically. This is a big moment for them to get in because obviously they helped out in ways that the Fellowship couldn't and that the Coriani couldn't circumvent, etc. And they seem to be like another fourth player outside of the Light Fellowship, Arathon, and then the Sam Pashir, as it is, turns out, and that there was almost a reverence from Asandir towards them, in terms of like this is okay. They wield real power within this world and have their own goals and ideas that they want to do. So
Yeah. Well, the very final news item in the book
Mhm.
mentions them, and I didn't know if that was a little prophecy for some future stuff here in the books to come.
Almost certainly.
Oh yeah.
But we'll need to go back.
For another of those, holy crap, while she doesn't like make a big deal of it, but just the scale of what the crone was doing there when she's talking to Seth Veer and they make their agreement. And he's like, proceed with my blessing, and then it's got the crone opened her hands. The forces held captive rushed into release as an arrow shot flaming through the crested surge unleashed by the confluence at Aethar. The convergent array of multiple futures resolved into one. So she's just like sitting there playing with timelines, possible futures, and it's like, whoa, okay, these guys are serious business.
Yeah.
Fascinating. But we do need to go back to talk about the conception and everything that happened in there because I think that whole part, I don't want to say contentious, but it bears real discussion about actually what happened in there and the choices that were made in there and the things that could happen because there was obviously two choices laid in front of them as a group, and that was Glendine would just be the surrogate and take part in it, and then carry the child through the end, but obviously she became a sort of surrogate through the possession, and whether that is any better. Obviously, the child is then born out of love, if you know what I mean. But Arathon wasn't exactly a willing participant in any of it at that stage, so it's kind of.
I kind of took it as that born out of love, that part was the necessary component for the healing
Right. Okay.
aspect of it.
Because it seemed to be that it was fine if it was Glendine, but it wasn't fine with Allura, if that made sense. Like Allura was going to be tortured by that act if Glendine had have taken on her own will as a willing participant as she was at the time. As she sort of says, like sort of a reason for Tyriel's death, at that stage, but that actually the fact that Allura kind of possessed her and kind of did it through her. But it ultimately asks the question is which would have been better? Because obviously Allura's going to be the mother of a child she was never actually involved with, if that makes sense. This child's going to grow up, and much the same way as Arathon's not going to know, but Allura probably will know, if you know what I mean. Like Arathon has no knowledge, but Allura will do. Is that how does she reconcile that in the next 3 weeks?
Sorry, was that me? Apparently, she doesn't know whether there is a child and doesn't want to know because she says that Glendale was taken away to. I guess she has to guess. Arathon probably doesn't even know to think about that stuff, but
He just
Ilera
had a nice
knows.
dream.
Yeah. That's true. But yeah, that was interesting. Like I started by feeling mad that Dakar and Glendine would plan that, and being okay with the whole the whole thing and how it played out. It yeah.
I was sort of mad that the MacGuffin was created for the possession of Allura Overending's body, but I actually think in retrospect it's much more difficult, the outcome now, with her being the mother but not mother of this child, of Arathan's child, if you know what I mean, further on down the line, which, as you say, she doesn't know, but she does know. Whereas
Yeah.
Arathan really has no idea. It can be hidden from him. He's not even really thinking about it in that way, because he just woke up and went, crazy dreams.
It yeah. I didn't.
I'm never playing poker with Chibi ever.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it is sort of set up like, I think that child, or what's going to happen with the child, or the people involved with the child and the hiding of the child in some ways, has got to play a large part of the next section of story. I'm assuming we're going to get a time jump at the end of the arc, and that kind of stuff. So
I looked it up.
Oh, of course you did.
it did. Yeah.
It's a pretty cool time jump.
Okay, I'm just worried about whether I'll see my boy Sultan again. I mean, that's where my heart is. I don't want to know. I'll find that out for myself. Thanks very much, Farship.
I don't
can
know.
read the books. Oh, you don't know.
The events, you'll find out.
Okay, good. But that is one of the things, because obviously they've been given 500 years of life, and a lot of the characters that we see obviously don't play a lot part of the book. I mean, the only people that are really going to carry through are Fellowship Sorcerers and them. Everybody else is sort of transient in that way, in terms of what's going on. So I don't really hold that I have to get attached to people and see them again, etc. But it is the idea that things can change very, very quickly in whatever these time jumps are.
Yeah, I'm very interested. I think like the end of this book kind of leads you into that direction, that there's gonna be a time jump.
Yeah.
Just because of the way it ends. Lysaeus,
Set it up.
He's off. He's gonna be recuperating from this ordeal in his own way. Arathon's gonna be recuperating from his ordeal in his own way, and everybody seems to be going off in these different directions. And the sorcerers are back, basically back in action. They're not tied up with all the drakes and the Grimwoods and what have you.
Well, they're
I
calling
have
the
a lot of
shots.
sewing to do.
Yeah, a lot of
sewing
sewing to
do. And so it just makes so much perfect sense for there to be a moving along in the timeline like we had before at the beginning of this arc, and at the beginning of the second arc. There was and there's a potential, because we know that they have this long lifespan. There's a potential for even a bigger jump. I don't know what it's going to be, but I could definitely see something there. And I have an odd feeling, and I didn't peek like Vasha did, but I have an odd feeling that you might have to say goodbye to Sulfan.
I mean, I'm sort of prepared for it. Like it's a way to go. I sort of feel like he's of an age. He isn't a young man. You see, he's not like Kevor. He's not like any of the very younger characters that are within this book. That we're going to see. It would make sense that we don't see Sulfan again. I mean, that's sort of what I think. But if I could just say goodbye on my own terms, that would be okay.
Yeah. Kev was an Athezept too, so
yes, that's right.
Possible with him, But so we'll see.
Longevity of life, yeah, indeed. But yeah, the end of the book was absolutely. It was so goddamn cool to see Ascendieth hoist the flag. For some people not to know what the hell was going on, and then for my boy Sulfan to go, oh shit. This something's about to happen here, and then poor Branson again. The redressing the balance say, Ilstrin isn't actually yours, my friend. This is we are reclaiming this, and we're kicking you out. And he's talking, because all the whole way through the book is my people. This place is my family's birthright, and all of that kind of stuff's been put again, the lives of man, and for the fellowship to come in and say, but actually, this has nothing to do with you. You're given this under, as you were given in guardianship of this place, and you abused it essentially.
Yeah. And then he mended the rocks. He mended all the cracks in the rocks and stuff, and that was
But
very
it
nice.
was so cool. And again, Branson fighting back on his basic, but you were told to leave. You were told the thing to do at this time was to desert Ilstrin and give it over. And if they hadn't done that, obviously things would have been redressed by the Fellowship further down the line. But as it is, only Mern, they lost one brother. Two of them, Parian was sort of forgiven in the eyes of the law, but obviously has to deal with consequences for killing Kirill. So there are lots of things that have still fallout from the end of this book that are outside the Fellowship's purview. But I just thought it was so cool. They just came and went, right, get out, everybody. This is our show.
Nice. Yeah, very satisfying book.
Oh,
And it's a
phenomenal.
blue flag. I don't
Get
know why.
Force of the t-shirt.
Yes, give me the t-shirt with the blue Fellowship flag. Yeah.
That's here's a question to ask you, GB, because we don't actually get to talk about this kind of stuff at the moment. Can you remember the first time you read it, GB? Kind of your general feelings, or from rereads, is it kind of you've forgotten how it was?
Like I mentioned earlier, I still remember the first time because I was not expecting at all what happened with Phelan, so I was I was floored by the end of this. I was like, I just everything. I got to the end, and I was like, with at Aether, and I was like, oh wow. I did not, once again, it was a case of I did not see that coming. And then, getting to see the moment, where he was cast out. The breaking of the Fellowship, as I guess we could call it.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah. And if I recall correctly, other than our little glimpse of a sorcerer asleep somewhere with a unicorn watching, that's our actual first time we've seen Kaladas.
Yes.
Actually speaking on the page and everything in a flashback.
Yes, but again, promising the idea that all things are transient in this world, everything's possible.
But yeah, just for the book as a whole, like I got to chapter 5, and I was like, oh wow, because I had figured the whole curse thing was going to keep going, between them all the way to the end and not get settled in, and then it's like, oh wow, nope, get fooled.
Yeah, it's interesting because the curse became such a big component of their lives, even after, like, the first book is called The Curse of the Mist Wraith, and they rid the world of the curse, but then they were victims of a curse from the Mist Wraith, and that was such a huge component of this whole war. But this book is called The War of Light and Shadow, and not The War of the Curse. So there's there's a lot. It makes sense that the curse is now gone, but the war is going to go on in the next 3 books, and that's what it's about. And so we had to keep our mind. It was like, you could have definitely said, oh, this whole book's about this curse, but now we're into a new territory, and you're reminded that this is the wars of light and shadow, and not just the curse. The curse was a big part of it, but there's more here.
I think one of the things that makes this book so spectacular is that the storyline is freed from the curse, if that makes sense. You know, the curse has been going on for so many books. We sort of know the rules of engagement with it in some ways. The two characters come together, they are going to lose control of themselves. There's going to be devastation, etc. There's so much we know about that, but actually, in the way that the curse has been released in here, in the last book, it was very much about Arthur getting his mage sight back, you know, because he's been missing from that for weeks. It kind of made him just a man for so many books, and obviously he's a bit more than that. And then in this one, the idea of what actually does this look like when the characters are freed, even momentarily, from the curse? Who are these people that are left underneath? And it creates an interest and an intrigue and an excitement that just propels the whole book towards the end. Like, this book is not short, but this book, I wouldn't say it reads quick, because none of Janny's books read quick, because they desire to be read and read carefully and read slowly to get the maximum amount of them. But you were propelled to read more because it was just so damn exciting.
Right. Yeah. Not read quick, but just read more. Yeah.
Read more. Yeah. Read more in your sessions. Or my pickup of this is, right, when's my next chance? I have to sit down and do a nice reading section. You know, I've got a couple of hours. I'm definitely reading more of this book and kind of putting your way through that. Kind of by the idea that we read 4 chapters at a time here quite easily the whole way through, you know, and are carrying straight on. We are getting to that stage of the story where it's like, right, so much is happening, so much is changing, and the possibilities are so endless. Like, this demands to be read.
So yes. Cool. Yes to all.
Yeah, even Varsha finished the reading assignment this week. That's how good it. Wow.
That's how good it was. Wow.
That's true. I was missing at least a few pages for each of the previous 3 discussions, but I actually made it to the end this time.
Yep.
So even Varsha's curse has been broken.
Yes.
That's true. We'll see if it stays broken for Initiate's trial. I'm going to try and start it this week so that I'm not reading last minute.
I'm going to leave it a week because I don't want to be speaking to Janny next week with knowledge of what comes next.
Yeah.
But you already know that, right, Varsha? So it makes no difference to you.
That's true. Yes.
I like to be surprised. But yeah, I mean, and it was also nice to look at some reviews and just have so many people writing reviews exactly how I felt finishing this book as well, which was just like, holy shit balls. This is exactly, you know, what you'd want from any book. You know, this is just spectacular.
Yeah, this is the banger.
This is an absolute what a book.
Cool.
Very good book.
Yeah, we've had some good books at the start of this year already, but this is this is astonishing.
This is good. Yes.
All right.
Any other points of discussion that we should have covered or need to cover still?
Just final things to say. Rest in peace, Carol. Rest in peace, Fiona Earth. Rest in peace, Vanton. Rest in peace, Phelan. Rest in peace, Phelan's mate, who I can't remember the name of. You know,
Dave.
Steve. Like that.
Steve without the S. Yeah, that's it. We lost a lot of good people in this book. We lost.
All right.
Yes, we did.
Dame Dower.
Dame Dower. Yes,
Yeah.
indeed. Yes.
Keldmar.
Yeah. So we lost a lot of very prominent and big characters in this book. And one final thing I do want to point out. In the moments of lucidity that Lysair had, he was able to grieve properly for the death of his wife.
Right.
Yeah. And I think in the moments of lucidity that he has, I think that idea, I'm playing with the idea that Kev, we're still out in the world here as of his own son from another marriage. I think he has an awful lot of emotional strain and turmoil to make his way through, which hopefully we get to see a lot of. Not that I want to see Lysair suffer, but I want to see his resolution of that and rebuilding of himself and rediscovering of himself, because that's pretty much, he hasn't been able to be himself for such a long time.
Yeah. Very cool.
Kevor lives.
Kevor lives. Yes, very cool.
I'm gonna go find
excited.
a subway wall to spray paint that on right now.
What color are you going to choose?
Yep. on the Mexico wall, the big Mexico wall, just letters going across it, Kevor lives, and then people will be going, what sort of political messaging is this?
Yeah, just like I'll just head down there, pick a random spot, and out in the middle of nowhere, and just spray that on, and everybody will be like, "What does this mean? Why is it here?
Yes.
Who
Yeah.
did this?"
And then we'll all get so busy solving the puzzle. Maybe things. Shut up. Anything else that? Okay, I guess we already did that. So let's do outros. Chibi Bo, could you start us off?
Of course. Again, I'm Chibi Po. I'm no longer on Twitter, so you can find me on Blue Sky as just Chibi Po without a one after it, because someone on Twitter had already done that apparently. But whatever, I deleted that. And I'm also on Page Chewing, and yeah. And I will be here next week and the week after.
Jared.
Cool. Fantasy Thinker YouTube channel. You can find me there. And you can find me on Page Chewing, on Speculative Speculation Podcast, and the Oscar Project Podcast, and a couple other read-alongs there as well. And so join if you wish. Chris.
Back where I belong, last. I'm Chris. I'm from the Chronicle Chris YouTube channel and all of those other places that Jared mentioned. We have read-alongs for lots of books going at the moment. Forces Planner in the next couple. What have we got? We've got Jane, we've got Cloud Atlas, we have Swamp Thing comic books, we have the Oscars Project. There's lots to be getting involved with if people want to and get and join in. That'd be good. And the SF Masterworks read-alongs as well. And Furio by Jack Vance is next.
Yes, it is. I've got it right here. Oh.
Oh, look at the amount of tabs in that book, Jared. I've seen lots of tabs.
You got tabs. So is that these are all the things I'm angry about tabs, or these are all the things I love tabs?
And you have to watch the discussion to find out.
Yes, good hook. So yes, come find us on the Page Chewing forum, and you can find these discussions on Reading by the Rainy Mountain or the Fantasy Thinker, and I guess Chris is not posting them. So anyway, one of our channels, you'll find them. And come check out those same channels for the live stream next week with Janny, and we're going to continue Initiate's Trial the week after. So yeah, lots to look out for for the Wars of Light and Shadow. And I think now is a good time to start reading the series because there's a lot of buzz on the YouTube areas of the booktube. I don't know why I put it like that. A lot of booktubers reading Wars of Light and Shadow.
Who's starting, we'll have their discussion on Friday this weekend.
Yeah, exciting. Nice. Looking forward to tuning into that.
Busy Jenny weekend.
Yeah. Excellent.
Yeah. Sounds like fun.
People loving.
Yep. Cool. So read the series. It's done and it's great. That's it. That's our parting message. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you soon. Bye.